Hersom Acorn Newspapers, publishers of the Greenwich Post, New Canaan Advertiser, the Darien Times, the Ridgefield Press, the Weston Forum, the Wilton Bulletin, the Reading Pilot, the Lewisboro Ledger, the Monroe Courier, the Eastern Courier, the Trumbull Times, Fairfield Sun, Shelton Herald, the Stratford Star, the Milford Mirror, and the Valley Gazette.
Hersom Acorn and HANradio.com. The leader in local news, sports, arts, and entertainment in Southwestern Connecticut.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Nutmeg Sports. We're at just about 2:02 on this Monday afternoon. Hard to believe we're in May already, May 4th, 2015. I'm Rob Adams. So happy you decided to join us for this Monday edition. Happy to be back, and we'll get into that and all that other stuff later on. But as we get the show started here right off the very top, we've got a lot to get to, of course, but we will get to that. But first, my colleague Kate Czaplinski is here with a news update. Kate, good afternoon.
Thanks, Rob. Good afternoon. Well, in some of the headlines today, Corey David, the Easton landscaper who pled no contest to attempting to murder and strangle his wife on March 11th, 2014, was sentenced Friday at Bridgeport Superior Court to 15 years in prison. Judge Robert Devlin further imposed 8 years of special parole and a permanent criminal protective order that forbids David from having any contact with the victim. David, who is 42, is in custody at a state detention facility. When police responded to a report of a domestic dispute, they were met at the door by David, who reportedly told police he might as well be straight with them and to put the handcuffs on, adding that he tried to kill his wife. Officers entered the garage on David's direction and saw a woman face down on the cement floor, gasping for air and convulsing. They also saw that a rope had been looped around and suspended from the middle bay garage door tract at the far end. A stepladder was next to the hanging rope, the report stated. The victim survived and is now seeking a divorce. In other news, Milford police are investigating an armed robbery last Thursday at Winners of Milford, an off-track betting establishment at 89 Roses Mill Road. About 10 minutes before 6 last Thursday afternoon, two men entered the OTB parlor and went into the restroom. After the business closed, the men emerged from the restroom brandishing handguns. They took an undisclosed amount of money from the business and left the area. The suspects are described as two black men. One was wearing a black coat, gray-colored pants, a black hat, and black shoes. The other was wearing a gray hooded sweatshirt, white shirt, light-colored pants, black hat, and black shoes. Anyone with information is asked to contact Milford Detective Michael Moreno at 203-783-4729. You can also visit milfordpd.org and click on the Submit Crime Tips to submit information. A Stratford man accused of hitting several vehicles with his car Saturday and leaving the scene is facing several charges. 44-year-old Bertrand Trammell Jr. of Jackson Avenue in Stratford was charged with operating under the influence, evading responsibility, following too closely, driving with a suspended license, driving an uninsured motor vehicle, and misuse of a marker plate, as well as interfering with an officer. Police said Trammell struck several other vehicles with his GMC pickup truck on the Devon Bridge at about 7 o'clock Saturday night and then fled the scene. Police later located his abandoned truck on Sheridan Street. Police used a canine unit to find Trammell at his home, and witnesses identified him as the driver. Several injuries were reported as a result of the wreck. The extent of those injuries was not immediately available. Trammell was held on a $25,000 bond and is scheduled to appear on May 18th in Bridgeport Superior Court. Nearly $1 million worth of proposed construction projects and equipment purchases are expected to come before voters at Ridgefield's annual town meeting at 7:30 tonight at the Ridgefield Playhouse. In addition to a $940,000 list of capital projects and purchases, voters at the meeting will approve the time, place, and hours of the annual budget referendum, which will consider the town's $135 million proposed budget for the 2015-16 year and much of the $6 million capital town budget. As part of the annual meeting, First Selectman Rudy Marconi, School Superintendent Deborah Lowe, and Board of Finance Chairman Dave Ulmer will give presentations on the proposed budget, which will not require a tax increase next year. Town officials will also be on hand to answer taxpayer questions. Marconi said the annual town meeting will be asked to vote for approval of the Selectmen's recommendation that the budget referendum be Tuesday, May 12th from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., with all districts voting at the Yanity Gym. The town meeting will be asked to consider approving 26 capital budget items, projects, and purchases that are all under $100,000 each and up to just under $940,000. The Fairfield Representative Town Meeting will also vote on its budget for the 2015-16 year tonight at 8 at McKinley School. In other headlines, the family of a woman whose SUV was on the tracks at Valhalla, New York crossing when a Metro North train slammed into it on February 4th, killing her and several aboard the train, is planning to sue. LowHUD.com, the website of the Westchester Journal-News, reports that lawyer Philip Rosati represents the family of Ellen Brody and has filed a notice of intent to sue Metro North and the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, which oversees it. The horrific crash was not Brody's fault, the lawyer said in a press release, but was due to several factors, including an unsafe crossing. Brody had driven her Mercedes-Benz SUV into the Commerce Street crossing just as the crossbar came down. She got out of the car to look at the damage, but with the safety lights flashing and the train approaching, she got back in and tried to drive forward, authorities said. The impact of the crash was so strong that it forced the electrified third rail off its supports and into the first car of the train. The SUV's gas tank apparently exploded, starting a fire that sent flames shooting through the first car and partway into the second car, according to federal and New York state officials. And that's going to do it for your news today. It is currently 75 degrees and sunny in Shelton. HAN News Time is 2:07. Back to you, Rob.
All right, Kate, thank you very much. And once again, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Nutmeg Sports for this Monday as we get into May. First of all, my thanks to John Kovach, Mike Suppy, Bill Bloxham for kind of holding the fort down last week. I don't think I'll ever get to Cal Ripken or Lou Gehrig territory, but I do try to make virtually everything, and to miss a couple of shows last week because I was under the weather, believe me, that is something that drove me rather crazy, but my hat is off to the guys who were able to help me, and at the same time, thanks to everybody here, because once in a while you need that kick from above to say, you know, you look bad, get lost, and that's exactly what I got told last week, to go home and kind of recuperate. So still feeling it a little bit, but I'm glad to be back with you mentally. I'm at least back in the game, so good to be here. 2:09 as we get started. So I'm thinking today's show is all about quantum physics. I'm thinking we will talk about European soccer, maybe some... No, obviously it's all about the FCAC football story from last week, which just continues to proliferate as we move. And before we take this show any further, because it is a sports show, but I've long thought that sports talk has an element of guy talk to it as well, and not just, people talk. Guy talk is kind of a euphemistic term, if you will, but there's a lot of elements to sports talk as it's evolved in the now 28 years, give or take, that the genre has existed. And it's often popular among folks like, those who keep us safe. Firemen, policemen, people, a lot of people love sports talk for different reasons, and especially if we do it right. And I like to think that what we do around these parts, we do it right. What I'm getting at, very long-winded, is just the awful news coming out of New York today, in which New York's police officer Brian Moore died of his injuries over the weekend, and I can only speak for myself and the Nutmeg Sports family that we send our condolences to the NYPD and the family of Officer Moore. we are just seeing way too much senselessness such as that. And, evolving over what had happened in Baltimore last week and everything there. And that became a sports story. It really did when you think about it, because you watched a Baltimore Orioles game turn into something that had never, ever happened. We saw a baseball game turn into an empty affair in which a crowd was not welcome. No fans. They listed the official attendance as 1, probably because there was no official way to put it as 0. It can't be done. So the official attendance turned out to be 1. And again, it's never happened. I can remember a football game in Westchester County in the 2000s that was supposed to take place in Mount Vernon, New York, and they closed the crowd out of that one. But we've never seen it at professional sports level. It's just what was going on there was mind-boggling. And again, the two stories have this sort of parallel to it, although they really don't. But I wanted to take a moment and talk about Officer Moore and that story just coming out. I mean, when you're 25 years old, I don't think we need to say much more. So, absolutely senseless and awful. Let us turn to the topic of football and things that make us, cheer and enjoy and love sports. And there's a lot of reasons that we do that. There are many reasons. But this FCAC football story continues to grow and becomes this machine. And just, it's got this snowball now. And look, we're a part of that story because we're the ones reporting it. Whether it was John last week with John Kutzo and Dave Schultz and Mike King, who were so gracious to come over here and talk. I mean, if you want to accuse me of defending those three, well, those are three guys. Those are three educators, and businessmen's not the right word, but I think you get what I'm getting at. They're three guys who were here for other reasons and got asked to come in. And they wouldn't have gotten blindsided by me any more than they would have been by John. They would have gotten very simple questions. What? Why? How? You can't browbeat them. They're trying to do what they think is the right thing. We still have to remember, at our base, this is still high school sports. This is not Peyton Manning. This is not Rex Ryan. These are not pros we're talking about. So I give them credit for coming in here and facing whatever music there was to face. And I'm hoping that between AJ and myself, we can link up and replay that for you, because I think it's important to hear it again before we get to really what is now going down. And some of that stuff I'm seeing is coming from our friends down at the Darien Times. And I'm going to read a quote to you coming from the Darien Times, but it's from Rob Trefone. Quote, "Therefore, I am proposing that the FCAC championship game be dropped and the traditional rivalry games be restored to Thanksgiving. Many other coaches in the league, including Lou Marinelli of New Canaan, are in favor of this. Most important, the players are in favor as well." Now, the funny thing is, when we had Coach Marinelli on Nutmeg Sports just a few weeks ago, he still seemed in favor of the championship game right up against its 50th edition coming up in November. And for completeness, I feel I have to tell you I've had the great honor of broadcasting 10 of those games, and I've loved every minute of it. Every minute of it. There's been a dog here and there. I think it was 41-14 or whatever the first one. The first one I did was 2001. It was Danbury and Greenwich. It was one of those combined. And doing Greenwich football for all those years, I fell into the opportunity to do those games. Not every game was great. The very first one I did in 2000 was a barn burner. New Canaan won on a missed extra point and a missed field goal. They won 21-20. Greenwich thought they had tied it on a blocked field goal. Great stuff. It was great stuff. So I've loved it. I've loved the pageantry of it. I've been in favor of retaining it. And I'm a traditionalist. I like the idea. I'm a historian. I love the idea of keeping it alive. 50 years it's been alive. But there has been so much going on now. And you can just follow it all on Twitter. I mean, the hashtag CTHSFB has just been off the charts. Following along what these guys are saying. And I appreciate what a lot of the media are trying to do. And I'm a member of it. I recognize where we deserve blame. I recognize where we don't deserve blame. We're just trying to report the story. And there have been, with Twitter, you get the opportunity to bring all of these opinions out. And so you get the Sean Patrick Bowleys, who Sean has said it right here on this show. He has said he is not in favor of the FCAC championship football game. And he has continued to say that, continuing right here on Twitter, where it's just a daily collection of, just 17 minutes ago he tweeted, if you don't have Darienne's Rob Trifone or NC's Lou Marinelli on board with the FCAC championship, what do you have? And it's not an unfair point. It's not. Dave Ruden's had some good quotes as well, saying best quote of last month from McMahon coach AJ Albano, quote, I'm embarrassed for all of us involved. I'm proud to be a member of the FCAC. I truly believe we are the best league in the state. At this point, we are the laughingstock of the state, and it's a shame. Those are strong words. Those are very strong words. Further strong words came from the captains of the Darien football team. And this is also in the Darien Times. They sent a letter, and I'll read it to you. It's also on DarienTimes.com. Quote, last week, the Fairfield County Interscholastic Athletic Council, FCAC, voted to move the Darien New Canaan Turkey Bowl game from Thanksgiving morning to the previous Saturday. We, the captains of the 2015 Darien High School football team, on behalf of our team, request that the FCAC reconsider its decision. And again, that's to move the game, the FCAC championship game, from Thanksgiving morning. And it had been played the previous Friday night for a long time. Then it was going to get moved to Saturday. Then it got moved back to Thanksgiving last week, which is all the uproar that you've heard over the past week. And the captains are asking for that decision to be rescinded. The decision to move the game was made to accommodate an FCAC championship game on Thanksgiving. If that occurs, 15 teams in the league will be left out of the chance to play their rivalry game in front of a large and passionate crowd. For over 20 years, the game, played on Thanksgiving, has been the highlight of the football season in Darien. It is also the game that we players look forward to the most, and it has also become an important school and community event. Our recommendation is that the FCAC championship game be removed and the Thanksgiving Day rivalry games be restored. We also urge the community to support this effort by reaching out to the school administration, which has a say in the matter, and let them know what you think. Captains signed it: Mark Ivanchik, Timmy Graham, Hudson Hamill, Colin Minikis, Bobby Trifone, and Christian Trifone. Strong words. What gets lost in a lot of this, and the older guys know this, and I'm not even one of the older guys. I mean, I've been around, but not that long. Wasn't all that long ago, though, that Thanksgiving was the FCAC championship game. And I think for a point of completeness, you've got to understand all the facts and why there is this passion to retain this game and get it back to Thanksgiving Day. And I get it. There's such passion on all sides. Dave Agostino, who was a writer for a long time, Sean Patrick Bowley basically stepped into his role. He had some strong words earlier, basically saying that, can an opt-out be offered to get John Kutzo out as commissioner? I mean, I'm just going to let that lay there in the ether. But so be it. To each their own. The words we're going to hear continue to be strong and forceful. I continue to think that there's got to be a way to make everybody happy. Now, I don't want to hold necessarily anybody's feet to the fire. We understand in this day and age that the CIAC wants to do right for player safety. And concussions, whether it's a buzzword or otherwise, that is the topic of the day. Because concussions are a big deal, obviously. We've seen it at the NFL level. We've seen it in Dave Duerson. We've seen it in Mike Webster. We've seen it in Junior Seau. We've seen it in others. Obviously, John Kovac, Marty Herson, Paul Silverfarb, and I were all at an event dedicated to concussions back in October, Players Against Concussion, golf event. And we talked with a lot of very wise people on the topic, from the Ranger Stefan Matteau to a lot of good people that day. David Cohn and, I can name drop, but you get my point. Concussions are a factor. And the CIAC feels that by capping a regular season at 10 games, you can continue to protect these players. But I also think, as John Kovac said on Coffee Break earlier today, that with better training and better equipment, not necessarily helmets, but better equipment and training, that we can get concussions under control. I'm not saying eradicate it. You're still going to have freak injuries. But that's where this came from. So I'm not trying to hold the CIAC's feet to the fire, but remember, it starts up at that level. That they said, this is what we want. 10 games, cap it. And that's where it sits. So now it puts the FCAC in this position. And I get what the rest of the state media is going to try to tell you. And that is that the CIAC is saying maximum 10 games. And everybody else in the state has gotten rid of their conference championship. They're all gone. I get it. But the FCAC, I'm telling you straight out, and this is for everyone, I have talked to enough players over time. I've had them on enough radio shows, and I've said to them, what's more important to you, the FCAC or the state? And I've had players look me in the eye and say, I don't know. I've also had players look me in the eye and say, the FCAC. Because there's only one FCAC championship. There are 6, 12, 8, 49 state titles in Connecticut. That FCAC means something to these guys. It means something to these players. Now, you're reading the strong words, and I just read the strong words to you of the Darien captains who say otherwise. We've got a conundrum on our hands, but I still think there's a compromise. It's 2:23 here on Nutmeg Sports. I've got more to get to on that. I'm continuing to watch some of the commentary that's been going on, and some of it amazes me. Where I'm reading comments such as one writer who won't vote for any team in the FCAC in a state poll going forward, which to me he should have his vote stripped, quite bluntly. And I have no problem going on record and saying that. You got to be fair. I don't care if they're playing 9 games or not. You got to be fair. Because at that point, you're irresponsible. So we've got more to get to on this topic. And as the week goes along, there's going to be more. This story's not going to die for a few more days. You can just sense it. We had Tim Murphy on our broadcast the other night. Of course, Tim is one of our great sports editors from Wilton and Ridgefield. He was with us on that Ridgefield baseball game. He talked to Ridgefield football coach Kevin Callahan, who said that there will be a meeting of the coaches and there will be more discussions. There's more room to play with on this story, and it's going to continue. So we'll go on as the week goes along. We'll pause for a break here on Nutmeg Sports. We'll come back, hopefully get you that video of John interviewing the FCAC representatives so we can just kind of play off that as well and continue on. It's a Monday Nutmeg Sports, kind of not what we had in mind for today's show, but we're doing fine, so we'll have some fun with it. So stick around. We're back at 2:25 right here on HANradio.com and streaming live along the Herson Acorn Network.
Breaks, sprains, injuries, and pain can now be quickly and expertly treated at Coastal Ortho Express in Norwalk. Why wait hours in the ER? Save a trip and save money going straight to an orthopedic specialist at Coastal Ortho Express Urgent Care, 203-845-2070. No appointment necessary. Coastal Ortho Express Urgent Care, open Monday through Saturday in the iPark building at 761 Main Avenue in Norwalk, or call 203-845-2070. Fast!
Healthy, confident smiles begin at Stratford Orthodontics. Conveniently located on Main Street, we are Stratford's hometown orthodontist. We offer the latest in orthodontic technology, including Damon braces and Invisalign. We always accept new patients. Call today to schedule a complimentary consultation. 203-375-8332. Stratford Orthodontics, 2499 Main Street, Stratford. 203-375-8332. And online at stratfordsmile.com.
Alliance. We are an industry leader in coordinating transportation for large events such as corporate road shows, conferences, and special events. Our team of experts understands the dynamics and logistics of high-pressure situations and complex arrangements, all within a rapidly changing environment. Since 1999, we have added charter jets, event management, and personal protection to our range of services. Mention this ad for $25 off your next round-trip reservation. Alliance and you. Together, we can achieve the extraordinary. 855-546-6996 or alliancelimo.com.
Yeah, hey, this is John Ratzberger. You listen to HANradio.com.
Back with you on Nutmeg Sports, 227 here on HANradio.com and streaming along the Hersom Acorn Network. I'm going to try to get some phones lined up as we have an opportunity to run this video again of the FCAC officials speaking with John Kovach. This, I believe, was last Wednesday when I was home. John did a great job stepping in, and I'm glad those guys were willing to talk. And so kudos to them. Never forget that they didn't have to say yes. So maybe I'm blowing smoke. If that's what you want to accuse me of, that's fine. So it goes. But in any event, AJ and I are going to sync it up right here. This is from last week on Coffee Break on HANradio.com and streamed live on the Hersom Acorn Network.
HANradio.com.
Welcome back to your Coffee Break presented by Stratford Orthodontics on HANradio.com. John Kovach, and we are joined right now by FCAC past president and Fairfield Ludlow athletic director Dave Schultz, FCAC executive secretary John Cookso, and current FCAC president Mike King, the athletic director at Trumbull High School. We're going to discuss the changes in the FCAC football schedule. The biggest being moving the championship game, the biggest maybe moving the championship game back to its traditional home as a standalone contest on Thanksgiving Day. That required a reduction to 9 games for the regular season, down from 10. How did we end up at the decision that was made the other night?
You want me
whoever
to talk
whoever
there,
can
John?
answer. Whoever
Okay.
can answer. I throw it out there.
All right. The history of the present football schedule that we're adopting for the next 2, possibly 4 years, started after June of last year when Bassick and Harding informed us that they were dropping out of our league, so that we had a 19-game schedule, a 19-team schedule, and it was dropping down to 17. And at the same time, our schedule plan, which started about 8 years ago, was coming to an end. So everything seemed to fall in line. Also, the state during the summer told us, the CIAC, that's what I mean by the state, informed us that we would not be able to play any more than 10 games. So now we were faced with a problem of a reduced number of teams to deal with and developing a schedule with 10 games. We had numerous meetings in the fall. We we developed a 10-game schedule, and it was adopted by our league board of directors on December the 9th, to be exact. And then in the middle of March, the football committee met, and myself and Mike King, the president of our league, we attended the meeting. Usually we don't go to committee meetings, but we wanted to see what exactly was it the coaches wanted. And so after hashing over the schedule for a long period of time, I think it was almost 2 hours, they came up with a recommendation from one of the coaches that they go with a 9-game schedule. And it was unanimously adopted by all the coaches present. Now, we informed the committee chairperson that he should call this committee together again immediately, like within the next 7 days, in order to see how we're going to drop one block of games to get 9 and also have our league championship football game. And they did that. Mike King, who was the president of the league again, was at the meeting with Gus Lundeen, the athletic director from Greenwich, and the second vice president in our league. So they were at the meeting, and they voted to adopt the schedule with 9 games and the league football championship involved in the schedule. Now, that vote was, Mike, what was it, 9-1?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, it was 9-1. All the coaches were not present. And incidentally, in the first meeting, all the coaches were not present, but there were 13 there, and they voted 13-0 to have a 9-game schedule. So what they decided on was that the game would be played, the championship game would be played on Thanksgiving Day, and that the rivalry games would be played on the weekend prior to Thanksgiving, so that all games counted.
So that was in the, excuse me one second, John. So Mike King, president of the FCAC. So that was in the vote that they took, was that that's how those games would have fallen?
Correct, and that's something that was, discussed at length, and I think it's exciting to with the new schedule format that we have, that we now have a 9-game schedule where all 9 games are going to count towards determining who plays in that FCAC championship. And we're returning that game, as you mentioned in your opening comments, back to where it was for so long on Thanksgiving Day. We feel like we have a championship in every sport that we have in our league. And the FCAC championship for football dates back to 1965. We have a 50-year tradition there that is an unbelievable experience for both the participants and the spectators. And now we have preserved that game, and we have a schedule format that allows for everybody to play their 9 games, and every one of those games will count towards, which 2 teams are going to play in that FCAC championship, which is something we haven't had for a while. The Thanksgiving Day rivalry games date back 20 years to 1994, and apparently when the league made that change and said we're going to move the FCAC championship off that date, there was a lot of controversy then too.
There was.
And things worked out pretty well. We think things are going to work out pretty well now.
Now, this was also approved by the athletic directors 10-7, and then by the board of directors. What would have happened had either the coaches or the athletic directors, before it reached the board level, had they voted against this?
Well, I think if they had expressed a desire not to go forward this schedule, that would have been brought to the board of directors, and most likely we would not have gone forward with the schedule we have now.
One of the things that's been thrown about, there's been a lot on social media about this change. One being that it elevates a conference championship that some people say is unimportant, their word, almost above the state playoffs, and also above all of the schools playing 10 games. Any thoughts on that belief, that opinion.
Well, it's true. They unfortunately can't play 10 games with the setup that the state has given us now with our FCIAC championship game. However, there are many coaches out there, too, who have reached out to us today and yesterday that are supportive of the schedule that we have in our league and how it will play out, that 9 games will be their season, and they really support and look forward to that FCIAC championship game on Thanksgiving Day.
Is that a return to tradition? Because I have talked to some people, longtime Fairfield County people, who expressed a desire to, a memory of that game being the standalone game on Thanksgiving.
Yes, it is. It is one of the considerations that we wanted that game to stand alone. And more importantly, though, was the coaches said they wanted all games to count. And if you go to the rivalry games being played on Thanksgiving, it did not count.
Right.
And one coach said to me, some teams get a free pass. In other words, they have a good record and they play their best game of the year or their most difficult game of the year, and that game doesn't count. And actually said they get a free pass. And they would like to see that system changed where the rivalry game would be played before the game.
And that was discussed, at every level along the way with the coaches, with the athletic directors, with the board of directors and the executive committee. And I think one of the, there's a lot of comments out there that, the kids aren't going to get to play in front of a great crowd and that the rivalry game being played 5 days earlier is going to be diminished somehow. And at each step of the way, when we discussed this, there were mixed feelings, and we don't necessarily believe that's going to be the case. I think there are a lot of people who are excited about that game being played earlier, where they don't have the Thanksgiving conflicts, where the game is going to count for a championship, and where potentially more people or people that traditionally travel out of the state can now see that game. A lot of students are traveling and don't see that game, and perhaps we're going to have larger attendance. We're going to see.
One of the questions that came to me yesterday as all this was going down is, aren't there already teams, I'm trying to remember if there are any in the FCIAC, that play their games Tuesday night, Wednesday night of Thanksgiving week? And that seems to hold as a tradition there, and I don't know that that's been mentioned at all in the
yes, there are teams. There are teams that have moved
tumult.
up their game the day before, or even 2 games before, and have had successful crowds at them, and the enthusiasm's still there. I think that they use Ward Ludlow as our school. I think that'll be a big game on that Saturday, with a large attendance, and a lot of people will still be looking forward to seeing us play.
Any other thoughts, gentlemen?
No.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you for having
Schultz,
us.
John Cookso, Mike King from the FCIAC. Thanks for joining us on Coffee Break. We're going to take a break and be right back with more news, sports, traffic, and weather from Southwestern Connecticut. You're listening to Coffee Break on HANradio.com, streaming on the Hersom Acorn Network.
442-9055, and we'd be happy to have you along. But those are the thoughts of the FCIAC officials. And they've got some, they have their side, and it seems like, in many ways, the rest of the state has their side. But it's clear that it's not done. And my take is I'd like to see the FCIAC championship continue. That's it. Now, I see where these rivalry games are that important. And again, I remind everyone that these rivalry games are, by comparison, a somewhat new idea, newer. And the rivalries don't work for everyone. Now, hear me out on this. For instance, for 15 years, I did Greenwich football. Greenwich built a rivalry with Staples, a rivalry that was formed in the early 2000s because Staples couldn't beat Greenwich to save their lives. And then, a game that I broadcast, actually, they beat them 14-8 in 2000 at Cardinal Stadium. And Greenwich almost won it on a last-second play. Ball dropped right through the receiver's hands in the back of the end zone. It was that close. So, Greenwich played Danbury forever. That was the Thanksgiving trip for me. I would go to Danbury, or Danbury would come down to Greenwich. You know, some of these teams, it doesn't work for them. In New York, there are, first of all, no Thanksgiving games, just by point of reference, just so you understand. There are no games on Thanksgiving with the exception of one or two. White Plains plays Step and Act, things like that. They play their rivalries at different times of the year, and it doesn't seem to really hurt them. Rye plays Harrison, and they've played every year with a few exceptions since 1929. And they draw about 10,000 every year. Every year. Seems to work for them. Even, you know, the alumni come home. Doesn't have to be Thanksgiving. They've played week 2. They still draw 10,000. It's crazy. I'm just giving you another point of reference. Recognize there are other ways of doing it. And New York's not all that far away. Said by the guy who drives there every day. I mean, this is what it's coming to, folks, is now I'm reading pithy little meme pictures and all. Sean Patrick Bowley just posting a picture of a boat split in half looking like the Titanic going down into the water with the FCAC logo on it. Hopefully my face says it all. Got a guy on the phone, and this guy knows a thing or two about high school football as well. Cato, can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you, Rob. What's going on?
Not much. Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm just listening to this. I can't quite figure out what is this obsession with the 10-game schedules. Well, I think that's the biggest thing of all.
No, Cato, I get that. I want kids to play. I don't want teams playing just 9 games and then 2 teams being able to play a 10th in the FCAC championship. I want kids to play their 10 games because, as we said earlier today, so many high school players only get an opportunity to play roughly, say, 10 to 40 games in their career, and that's it, you know, before they go on to college and they never play again. I understand that. I don't want to cheat kids out of their games. Let them get their 10 games, you know?
Exactly. But there's also an aspect where you want to crown a champion. And what upsets a lot of the other conferences in the state is the fact that the FCS does have a championship game, and they do crown a champion, where I don't know how the other conferences do it. I guess they just hand out the award to whoever they think is the best team.
Yeah, like I said earlier in the show, all of the other state title or conference titles have gone away. At this point, it's the FCAC.
Yeah, and it seems like football really is the only sport nationwide where at a lot of levels they don't have a team that wins a championship. It's handed to them.
Right. But look, Cato, you were a part of the broadcast last year at Boyle Stadium. You've been with me for games that were Greenwich Staples championships. You've been a part of this. You know,
I've done 4 champions.
Right, okay. My point is, you saw last year 7,000, whatever it was, at Boyle. You saw the insanity of that football game. You saw Staples Greenwich a couple of times. You've seen these you saw New Canaan and St. Joe's at Trumbull. My point is, you recognize the passion and the energy that goes into this championship game. Isn't that something that's somewhat worth fighting for, in your opinion?
Absolutely. And not to mention the fact there's a gate involved for the FCAC, which allows them to, raise money for the conference.
Yes, and that is a factor. Look, you're absolutely right about that. There is money to be considered, but these conferences have got to make money too. I mean, I hate to say it's a business, but there is a certain business element to this. We can't forget that.
Absolutely, and I see all the things on Twitter about everyone else being against the FCAC championship game, and that's all writers from either out of the FCAC conference, and a lot of those writers don't like the FCAC conference. They think the FCAC conference is overrated.
Well, yeah, I mean,
and I think there is a bias there.
Yeah, I mean, there could be. There could be a bias and all that, and I don't know if I necessarily want to jump into charging people with biases. These are good reporters. Look, I've said it before and I'll say it again. I like Sean. I've known Sean Patrick Bollig for years now. So if we agree to disagree, that's fine. You know, and he's welcome on this show anytime, and hopefully he and I will meet again soon, and he can come right on here and talk about it. That's fine. I exchanged thoughts with someone else today who wants to take an alternate view and come on. That person will be on the show as well. That's fine. I have no axe to grind there. Let me get to this, Cato. What do you do? How do you satisfy everyone? Is there a compromise?
Honestly, I don't know. I don't know what kind of compromise. You've got to somehow whittle in a 9-game schedule.
Right.
With the possibility for an FCX championship.
Right.
If you're just going to crown a champion based on record and stats and points scored and defensive stops inside the 20, if it gets whatever, you're pretty much, that's what you're going to do. You're going to shave it down to numbers, strength of schedule, the whole 9 yards. And it's unfair.
Here's my suggestion that I've been proposing, and it's not going to go anywhere, but I'll throw it out there. You get to now. There seems to be a couple of issues here. One issue is that 9 games isn't enough. Everybody wants to play 10. I'm in total agreement on that. You hear people want the rivalry game on Thanksgiving. I don't know if I can help you on that. But what if we've reached the end of, the 9 games, and you've now figured out that you've got A and B for the FCAC championship game. Now everybody else is left. Can't there be some kind of a reseeding? Can't there be some kind of a structure to come up and make sure that the rest of the conference gets their games? Can't there be something like that?
This is going to be something you said for years, and I'm going to throw it out there. Here's just a random idea that might make a little sense.
Okay.
Can we start the season a couple of weeks sooner?
See, now that goes back to the CIAC. And again, I'm not looking to bash. I'm not looking to jump on anyone. I'm a lover, not a fighter.
But Rob, it makes sense.
I totally agree it makes sense. That has been my complaint with the CIAC for a long time, and it's never going to change, or at least it seems like it's never going to change, that it should start sooner.
I mean,
we're the last state in the union.
Exactly. And the problem is football is not a sport that lends itself to cramming your schedule. It doesn't. It's just you can't do it.
Right.
It's too grueling of a sport to mesh 2 games a week. You can't do it.
Well, and there's also
it's not like basketball.
Right. There's also a little something there where you can't play 2 games a week. That's coming to light as well.
Right. And it's even in the NFL, at its worst, even with a screw up in the schedule, teams are playing at most 4 days apart. And that doesn't happen that often.
I just feel like, let's say for argument's sake, and I understand that the history indicates that since the late 90s, it's been Darien, Greenwich, Staples, New Canaan, with an occasional visit from Trumbull, Bridgeport Central. I'm trying to think who else has been in the mix in that stretch, but you get the idea. Largely, it has been a collection of teams. Trinity Catholic was very close a few years ago, and that's the beauty of it. I mean, the Yankees were in the World Series how many times? 40 times between 1921 and 2009. I mean, so it goes.
Exactly.
The Canadiens won 23 cups. Okay.
There you go.
But
you still play the games.
But in my way of thinking, and I understand, maybe I'm naive, maybe I'm simple. If I get to early November and I've come up with Darien, Greenwich as my 2 remaining teams, okay, so now you're on the fringe of possibly losing Darien, New Canaan if that hasn't been scheduled. Well, I want Darien and New Canaan to play. I want a Turkey Bowl game. Can it be the weekend before? Is that the end of the world? I'd like to see these rivalry games get played. I just think These are smart people. They're going to get in the room. They're going to hammer it out somehow. I think we're going to try to find compromise here. I really do. I really do.
I honestly hope so, because, I mean, there's an element to having your own town. Essentially, you're not allowing a football team to win the league. You're instead awarding a league winner.
Nope. To some, and certainly those outside of the FCAC, it's not that important to, quote-unquote, win the league. I don't know. But this Thanksgiving
Which
thing...
I think is silly.
Yeah, no, this Thanksgiving thing means a lot, and there are those who are more vocal about getting Thanksgiving back than there are others. Cato, I got to run. I got to grab a break, but thanks for the call, and we'll talk to you soon.
Have fun.
All right.
Take it easy, guys.
All right. Our colleague, Christopher Cato Kalin. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to come back. Hard to believe I'm running alone here for 50 minutes, and I've yet to take another break, so I will do one right now. But we'll pause. It's a good show. Look, I don't have the answers, folks. I'm not going to tell you my answers are right. And I'm not going to necessarily tell you your answers are wrong. I'm going to tell you we're all entitled to our opinions. Sorry if that sounds very simplistic and, kind of talk 101, but I'm not going to go Diet Coke on you. There are opinions here, and they're all valid. So let's talk about them. That's why I've got phones. That's why I just hooked them up, because they're all legitimate. So I'm curious what you think. I'd like to think in some small factor you're curious what I think. I want to keep the game alive, but I want to make everybody happy in the process. I don't know, but I think a compromise can be found, and it's a story that's going to continue at least through the balance of this week's programs through Wednesday. We'll pause for a break. We'll come back. We have more to do. Kate's going to return with another HAN news break as we continue on a Monday edition of Nutmeg Sports right here on HANradio.com, streaming live along the Hersom Acorn Network.
Spring is finally in the air, and our favorite season is upon us. The Dock Shop is all geared up with a great selection of fishing tackle, custom fishing rods, and all the latest accessories to replenish your tackle box. The Dock Shop has also just brought out the newest spring fashion apparel from Montauk Tackle, Altered Latitudes, Kaylee Smith, and Margaritaville Apparel. Need some new foul weather gear for those chilly spring mornings? The Dock Shop is loaded up with Grundens and Stormer in a variety of styles and sizes. Ladies, we've got you covered as well with spring apparel and the newest designs of coastal jewelry, bags, and accessories. Boater, beach bum, fisherman, or simply love the New England coast, this is a unique place to shop. The Dock Shop, 51 Tokenique Road, Darien, Connecticut. Visit us at dockshop.com.
Did you know that taking dance lessons is a great date night idea? Arthur Murray Grand Ballroom of Greenwich is a fabulous place to learn to dance and meet new people. Located at 6 Lewis Street, our studio is staffed with professional instructors ready to teach you salsa, waltz, rumba, hustle, tango. There's a dance for every season. And we are rated #1 on the Knot.com. We are the wedding dance specialists. Take advantage of our new student offer, only $49. Call 203-769-1800. Visit us online at arthurmurraygreenwich.com.
This year, 3,000 Connecticut women will be diagnosed with breast cancer. Hersom Acorn is a proud sponsor of the Komen Connecticut Race for the Cure. Help make an impact in the local fight against breast cancer by joining us on May 9th in Westport at Sherwood Island. With your help, Komen Connecticut invests in local breast cancer programs, helping local women beat breast cancer. Visit KomenCT.org to register, volunteer, or donate today. We race for Connecticut. Why will you race?
Does advertising on HANradio.com work? Just ask Coastal Orthopedics. They ran spots with us, and within 24 hours they had 21 walk-ins and 8 calls to their new immediate care center. To advertise on HANradio.com, call 203-417-5199 and ask for Marianne Hersom.
You're listening to Hersom Acorn Radio.
Back with you on Nutmeg Sports at 2:55. Thanks to AJ for running the controls today. Normally, all of our shows, we've got people falling all over each other in our Shelton studios today. It's almost like luxurious in here. This is the new room, and really the first time I'm sitting here to be a part of this first Nutmeg I'm doing from here. So it's great to be here, but it's kind of funny in that, normally there's Kate and Don and John and Josh and Marty and Tracy and AJ and Mario might be here and Eric Gendron might be here. No, it's John's behind the curtain. AJ's right over there, and I'm here. That's it. It's very quiet in here. So this wasn't the way we had it lined up. I was hoping to have Mike Suppy on, Bill Bloxham, Dave Stewart. Those guys had to skip out for one reason or another. So I'm actually quite grateful to Cato for giving us a call as well. We expected it to be a much different show to start a Monday, but things happen, and that's why I love what I do. I love being able to see what sticks when I throw it on the wall. But that's also my experience of doing shows since the late 90s and being in radio. It'll be 25 years for me in September, so it's hard to believe. But as I said to Kate, kind of jokingly, that, we'll get through the show. Thank goodness I'm new to this business. So over the weekend, there was obviously a very big event out in Las Vegas. And much made about it, and a lot of money made on it, as well as Floyd Mayweather fought Manny Pacquiao. I have a piece that is up at hanradio.com. I write a segment occasionally called From the Press Box. And, I love the idea of being able to write. It's why I started a blog almost 9 years ago. And I was telling someone quite a while ago that... Well, long story short, I do enjoy dabbling in writing occasionally. So that's why I started doing the From the Press Box bit, which actually grew out of something that we used to run actually on GreenwichPost.com a few years ago. Chris Kalin was one of the guys who wrote, myself and a few others. Anyway, all that as the preamble to what I'm getting at here. I did write this piece. It's called Credentialed Chaos. I hope you will give it a look. And I bring it up because while it's something that is of a national sort, with the Mayweather-Pacquiao fight as the backdrop, there's a greater globalization to the story and a local feel to it, in that it also involves the discussion of domestic violence and domestic abuse, which Floyd Mayweather has been accused of and has also done jail time for. Also has had suspended sentences and fines. And it's a topic that I think any person should feel strongly about. I'm no advocate. I don't even like that word. And I certainly don't like the term ever being applied to me, because it's just not what I am. But I do feel strongly on the topic that abuse is abuse. And it shouldn't be tolerated. And it shouldn't be tolerated whether it's female to male or male to female. It doesn't matter. Abuse is abuse. So I have a lot of problems with rooting for Floyd Mayweather. That's the whole background of it all. When you come around to what went on with Michelle Beadle and Rachel Nichols, two really tremendous sports journalists having their credentials yanked from them, I have a big problem with that. Not only does it look terrible from a public relations point of view, and how more tone deaf can you be if you're the Mayweather camp than to pull the credentials of two respected reporters? But two female reporters. Can you look any dumber? I have no tolerance or patience for any of that. I just don't. And I won't. And I won't harbor that at all. So I hope you will go give it a read. It is a conversation you're more than welcome to have on this show. Again, I understand there's a national feel to it, but there's domestic violence. It involves everyone. Whether it's here in Fairfield County or it's Floyd Mayweather. So give it a read. Sometimes I write these from the press boxes, and they're nice. Sometimes it's to introduce something or talk about things that we're doing here. But sometimes there's something even a little bigger that I feel a little stronger about, the girls hockey one that I wrote a few months ago and this one that I wrote yesterday. And sometimes inspiration strikes when you're just sitting in your front yard and you're doing some reading and you recognize that, your voice can be heard. So just about at 3 o'clock, just about time to wrap this show up. As Kate and I said, we'd get through it, and we did. And Kate is back with us and almost ready to go with her second news update. So if Kate is ready, I glance at her. I get a thumbs up. I hand things over to Kate Czaplinski. Kate?
Thanks, Rob. Well, according to media reports, firefighters are responding to the Sunnyside boat ramp in Shelton for a potential water rescue. The water rescue is in the area of 418 River Road, and the Echo Hose Hook and Ladder Fire Company was called out. According to that firehouse, no additional information was immediately available. In other Valley news, Deirdre M. Daley, United States Attorney for the District of Connecticut, today announced that on April 29th and 30th, the FBI, DEA, and HSI arrested 8 individuals as part of an organized crime drug enforcement task force investigation that's been dubbed Operation Juicebox. The arrests culminated in a long-term investigation into steroid and prescription pill distribution by multiple individuals, including a Newtown police sergeant, a Newtown police dispatcher, and a Connecticut judicial marshal. The investigation, which included the use of wire and electronic surveillance for nearly 2 months, also revealed that members of the conspiracy allegedly imported steroids from China. Several individuals have been arrested in that. During the course of the investigation, law enforcement officers seized hundreds of vials of steroids, approximately 600 grams of raw testosterone powder, about 350 grams of powder cocaine, and 4 long guns. In other news, Corey David, the Easton landscaper who pled no contest to attempting to murder and strangle his wife on March 11, 2014, was sentenced Friday at Bridgeport Superior Court to 15 years in prison. Judge Robert Devlin further imposed 8 years of special parole and a permanent criminal protective order that forbids David from having any contact with the victim. David, who is 42, is in custody at a state detention facility. When police responded to a report of domestic dispute last March, they were met at the door by David, who reportedly told police he might as well be straight with them and to put the handcuffs on, adding that he tried to kill his wife. Officers entered the garage on David's direction and saw a woman face down on the cement floor, gasping for air and convulsing. They also saw that a rope had been looped around and suspended from the middle bay garage door tract at the far end. A stepladder was next to the hanging rope. The victim has survived and is now seeking a divorce. Nearly $1 million worth of proposed construction projects and equipment purchases are expected to come before voters at Ridgefield's annual town meeting. That's 7:30 tonight at the Ridgefield Playhouse. As part of the annual meeting, First Selectman Rudy Marconi, School Superintendent Deborah Lowe, and Board of Finance Chairman David Ulmer will give presentations on the proposed budget, which will not require a tax increase next year. Town officials will also be on hand to answer any taxpayer questions. Marconi said the annual town meeting will ask voters for approval of the Selectmen's recommendation that the budget referendum be Tuesday, May 12th from 6 to 8 p.m. with all districts voting at the Yanity Gym. The Fairfield Representative Town Meeting will also vote on its budget tonight. That's going to be at 8 p.m. at McKinley School. The family of a woman whose SUV was on the tracks at a Valhalla, New York crossing when a Metro North train slammed into it on February 4th, killing her and several aboard the train, is planning to sue. LOHUD.com, the website of the Westchester Journal-News, reports that lawyer Philip Rosati represents the family of Ellen Brody and has filed a notice of intent to sue Metro North and the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, which oversees it. The horrific crash was not Brody's fault, the lawyer said in a press release, but was due to several factors, including an unsafe crossing. Brody had driven her Mercedes-Benz SUV into the Commerce Street crossing just as the crossbar came down. She got out of the car to look at the damage, but with the safety lights flashing and the train approaching, she got back in and tried to drive forward, authorities said. The impact of the crash was so strong that it forced the electrified third rail off its supports and into the first car of the train. The SUV's gas tank apparently exploded, starting a fire that sent flames shooting through the first car and partway into the second car. Federal and New York State officials said it is currently 75 degrees in Shelton. HAM news time is 3:04.
Kate, thank you very much. 3:04 as we hit the end of this broadcast for Nutmeg Sports. We'll be back with you tomorrow. I know Bill Bloxham said he could stop by tomorrow, so we will chat with him. Dave Stewart's still a little under the weather. We will chat with him as well. But we'll be back with more on all of this. There's a lot more to do on all these topics, and we'll spend much more time on this football story. Look, it's a big story. It's not going away. So keep all that in mind. AJ Simonowski kept us going behind the glass, quote-unquote, if we had glass. Kate Czaplinski had the news updates. Thanks to John Kovac, he kept us company right here as well. For all of them and for all of us here at HANradio.com, I'm Rob Adams. Thanks for listening and watching Nutmeg Sports on HANradio.com and streaming live along the Hersom Acorn Network. Coffee Break will get your date tomorrow, started tomorrow at 11 o'clock. Have a good night, everyone, and have a good afternoon. So long.
Hersom Acorn and HANradio.com. The leader in local news, sports, arts, and entertainment in Southwestern Connecticut.
Want to get in touch with HAN Radio? You can find us on Twitter at Hersom Radio, on Facebook at Hersom Acorn Radio, or email us at radio@hersomacorn.com.